In this next episode of Another Mother, I sit down with Jade Reynolds and we get to chat about parenting without a blueprint, what it's like when you can't take all of the popular parenting advice, and how to just grow in confidence as a parent doing things your own way. I love all the things that Jade shares, especially when she talks about how our children are way more resilient and adaptable than we give them credit for. So check out this episode wherever you usually listen to your podcasts, or you can watch it on YouTube. Hello everyone and welcome to Another Mother. This is a faith and parenting podcast by My Spring Harvest with me, Emma Francis. I am a mum of two little ones. I've got Ezra, who is now 5, and Hallie, who is 2. And I guess as we all experience in some way or another, life can be unpredictable. It's full of ups and downs and curveballs, especially when you've got kids. So in these podcast episodes, I chat to people about their experiences of parenting. I learn from them, I get their wisdom, and they give me so much joy. So I'm glad that you've joined us for today's conversation, and I hope that it brings you a bit of inspiration and encouragement for your day wherever you find yourself. So today we are joined by none other than Jade Reynolds.
Thanks for having me.
It's so lovely to have you here. So you have been on the podcast before.
I have.
For those who listen.
Yeah, I feel very honoured to be asked back.
Yeah, so you were in season 1, which was obviously our first ever season. We're now season 3.
Yeah.
You were with your husband in the first episode.
Yeah.
But today we've just sent him on his way.
We have, yeah. We got rid of him. He wasn't that good, was he? We kept the best.
Yeah, we've saved the best. And we are here at Spring Harvest, and you guys are pretty busy this week, aren't you?
We are, yeah. We're hosts at the Unplugged event in the evening.
Okay.
We've got a seminar. I think I'm preaching on Friday morning. So, yeah.
You think you're preaching?
Well,
or
I
you're
am,
not?
but I haven't thought about it too much. It's one of those ones where I'm vaguely aware that's coming closer, but I just want to get through today first.
Yes, yeah, take it one day at a time.
Yes.
It's a good way to be. So since we first ever spoke, your lives have actually changed quite a bit as well, haven't they? Probably still feel much the same within your family home.
Yeah.
But you've grown significantly on social media. You've got over 800,000 followers on social media.
Yeah.
Where you kind of share about your family life and the funny things that your kids say, and your husband making all the jokes.
Yeah, I get teased a lot and it gets filmed a lot. So
yeah, and you don't mind?
No, I don't mind. I'm a good sport with it.
That's good. And you've also released a book in this time.
Yeah, we have.
Very
Able to
busy.
Laugh. Yeah. Find and joy that the struggle is real.
I love
It's basically my life story really, and kind of all the questions we get asked on social media because we're an interabled couple, and kind of how do we navigate life and faith and parenting, all those things.
Yeah, so because we spoke about that quite a bit in the first episode. So if anybody hasn't listened to the first episode, go and listen to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we spoke about the diagnosis that you received just before your 13th birthday, wasn't it? Where now you're paralysed, but then how your life has just all the things that means for your life, and raising your kids and navigating just family life and just life in general. So we spoke a lot about that in the first episode, didn't we? And how your faith has been such a big part of your story.
Yeah.
But then today I thought we could go a bit of a different angle, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm up for it.
Yeah, so I thought that we should talk about what it's like to kind of parent without a blueprint.
Yeah.
And I think that's basically everybody feels like they're parenting without a blueprint, without kind of a model to follow. But there's this idea that there's the perfect type of family, 2.4 kids, a house with a white fence, stable income, no health issues.
Yeah.
Everybody's just happy every single day, no issues. But obviously that's not really the way it is for most of us most of the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought we could have a little chat about what that's like in your life. In my life as well, I feel like I'm really parenting without a blueprint as well.
Yeah, I think that everyone feels that way.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's more obvious because people see the physical disability that I have, and so they think, oh wow, it must be really hard for you being a parent because there's not many people around that you see in wheelchairs who are parents, and so I think it's more obvious, but it's something that everybody struggles with.
Yeah.
Because you can't prepare for being a parent. It's like a job you get and you're learning every day through your experiences.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of highlighted more for me, but I think it's something we all kind of deal with.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was going to say I guess there's labels and judgments and expectations on all of us. And I think especially when you become a mum or a parent, like when you're pregnant, you get so many labels. Like as soon as you tell a doctor you're pregnant, you then get labeled like, I don't know, geriatric, low risk, high risk. Like there's all these different titles.
Yeah.
And the titles and the kind of labels that we receive can often end up defining our experience, because we take that on and we think, okay, well, this is what's expected of me. This is what I'll be. And I know you've spoken before actually about how like very often you'll go into places and people like offer to pray for your healing and stuff. And you're just like, okay. But it's that thing of like constant like expectation and judgment, or I don't know. And so how do you feel that you've like learned to live kind of freely from other people's expectations and just live your own journey?
Yeah, I think labels is interesting, because I think we live in a world full of labels, and labels aren't necessarily bad. That's how we learn, that's how we understand things. So it's kind of, but it's realizing that they have a place. So for me as a disabled mum, it's a descriptive word, disabled. It's not an identity word. So for me, it's neutral. So there's no kind of value judgment behind it. So if someone says disabled mum, that doesn't actually tell you whether I'm a good mum or a bad mum. It tells you that I'm disabled. And I think sometimes we can get these labels and we can really take them on board and they become our identity. And I think particularly if you have kind of negative connotations behind, say, disability, for me, disabled mum sounds like an insult straight away, because I've grown up in a society where disabled is negative, it's bad. And so for you to call me that feels like, oh, disabled mum, it doesn't quite sit right with me. But actually, I think it's all about redefining what that means for you. And I found, particularly being on social media and seeing people comment on different things, and they can have so many different opinions out there, and most people don't have any idea what they're talking about. So the good and the bad, we get so much praise from strangers, and we also get some negativity. But actually, do they know me? Do they know what it's like to be disabled? No. And so does their kind of opinion matter? No. Like actually they have a very limiting view of disability. And so if I lived under their worldview, then the only person being limited is me, not them. Wow. So, you know, it's kind of me. And I've had to learn that from a young age, because you know, all throughout my life, it's kind of been, oh, can disabled people, can they go to uni? Or can disabled people, like, you know, have romantic relationships and get married? And so every single step of the way, I've had to not assume things. I've had to go, okay, even if this isn't being said, you know, openly, because no one's come up to me and said, you can't get married. Like that would be crazy if someone said that. I mean, maybe it will happen at some point, but, you know, no one says that, but it's the subtle cues that you get from society. I didn't see people, I mean, with social media now, you do see more people that I can follow in a similar situation, but I didn't see people getting married, having kids with a very severe disability. You know, I didn't kind of have, like you said, that blueprint. And I think what was good for me is my mum is great at going, well, let's just explore that. Like from the get-go, as soon as I became paralysed, she was like, well, you know, people say you can't go camping because all the youth group was going camping. She said, let's just explore that. Let's bring the camping the group up and just see, like, is there any way we can do it for you? Maybe there's a tent we can find that would be better for you. Maybe there's, and I think I've really taken that on board myself and just gone, well, I won't just live under other people's limiting views, because most of the time they aren't disabled themselves, or they don't know anyone disabled. So I just think, let's just explore it and see.
I love that. Let's explore that.
Yeah.
It's like the good phrase.
Yeah.
That's so good. Yeah, because I think it's like, it's one of those things, isn't it, where you never know how something feels until you're in a situation. And sometimes you might have an expectation about something, like if somebody said, oh, tomorrow you're going to go bankrupt, you might think, oh my gosh, like my whole life will come crumbling down. What am I going to do? How am I, like, but then when you actually are in that situation, there will be challenges, of course. Yeah. But there is such like human resilience, isn't there? And we find a way through exploring what our options are, but often only when we're put in the position. Yes. And so, yeah, I guess it's similar to kind of parenting when you're thrown into kind of the deep end, which everybody feels like they're in the deep end, don't they, when you've got like young kids or teenagers or any type of kids. It's so hard, and it's often kind of like navigating in the dark. But have you found there's other things that have helped you as a parent now to kind of, to navigate this time where there isn't so much advice out there that is necessarily applicable to your situation? Or how do you know what to take and what to leave to not kind of make you feel like, oh, well, I'm not going to be able to do that with my family, but I can do this instead? How do you work that out?
It's trial and error.
Yeah.
You know, you just have to keep trying new things, and some things don't work. You know, some things I've tried with my kids and they haven't worked. I remember when my firstborn Elijah, there wasn't any kind of prams that were like adaptable for me, my situation. There's no way, if you can imagine me now trying to push a pram, and how do I push myself as well? You just go around in circles. So that was really hard. And so in the end, I just would like have a baby sling, and I found that worked for me. But it is, you have to be creative. But I think the most successful people in life, they're creative. They try and think outside the box. And I think I see my disability as a strength because I've had to think outside the box for nearly everything. You know, there's not kind of one size fits all. But I think we can all benefit from thinking that way. You know, and kind of sometimes there isn't someone who's gone ahead of you and done whatever you're trying to do. So you have to think, okay, what do I need? And then how do I get what I need? There's kind of that. And it's kind of even people around you kind of who know you, know your situation, know your personality, your strengths, your weaknesses, know your children. And I think they can give advice because they're entitled to, because they're close to you and they understand the full situation. I think it's hard when there's, on particularly social media for me, just so many different opinions being thrown at you from people who literally know like 1% of your life, but they think they know everything. And you'd go crazy if you were trying to, you know, take on all the advice you were given. 99% of it is just not applicable for our situation, but it's, people sound very confident when they tell you, you know, this is what you should be doing. And you're thinking, you don't know me at all. Like, why would you think that would work for us? Because you don't know about this or this or this, you know. So it's kind of, I think, having a good community of people around you, I think is so key for that, because you need people to speak into your life. You need people who are maybe a little bit outside of your bubble, who can kind of notice, oh, you know, have you thought about this or that? Because, you know, I'm not a creative genius. I don't, you know, I need other people's input. So I think it's just having wisdom about whose advice to take on board and who's to throw away.
Hi guys, I'm just interrupting this episode of Another Mother very quickly to let you know that bookings for Spring Harvest 2026 are now open. We would love for you to join us at Butlin, Skegness or Minehead next April for a week of transformation to deepen your faith and come along and be inspired with our teachings, be in our worship sessions and come together with a community united in faith. So head over to springharvest.org to book your tickets now, and I will see you next year. Yeah, that's a good, because I think sometimes there can be like a bit of, I don't know, like shame in like asking for help or like asking for like our close people for advice. So then that's when we often turn to like the internet, because it's almost like in secret you can be like, what do I do about this? And you don't actually have to like expose yourself and your flaws and your vulnerabilities, but actually being able to be real with your community and be like, I'm stuck here, like what do I do about this? And actually asking for their advice is really good. And I think like the whole like being on social media or just looking online or on TV, just generally we consume so much of this kind of like perfect family structure or the way that it's meant to be. And when you feel like you're in a position that isn't like that, you then can suddenly start to feel like I'm in the way it's not meant to be, and it suddenly starts to feel quite negative. Like I know from my own situation, there's been times when I've like looked and I've started to limit myself just because I think, oh well, how do I take the kids on holiday by myself? Like, can I do that? Like, I don't know. And then I'll like start looking at like best places for solo parents to take two small children on holiday, and then I'll just give up because I'm like, oh, I can't do this. Whereas probably if I spoke to like some friends, or well, I did speak to one of my friends about it, and she was like, I would come on holiday with you. And I was like, oh, okay, well maybe we could do that. So there's like always ways around it, but I think is that releasing of the shame of things not being perfect or ideal, and then you can invite your community in to like support you in that. And I think as well, just as like not comparing ourselves.
Yes, I think that's a big thing, because on social media particularly, you're only seeing such a small portion of someone's life. Even if you feel like you're seeing a lot of it, you're not. Like, a lot of stuff staged, a lot of it like, or it's acted, or it happened before and they're reenacting it on camera for then. Like, it's so funny because John will often get on social media if he's doing a live and he's maybe doing like a craft with the kids or something, and you know, chatting to people, and people go, you know, one of the kids has a tantrum, you are so patient with your kids. And it's so funny because John's like, of course I'm going to be patient. I'm on camera to hundreds of people. Like, in fact, that's helping me be patient, because I'm not going to shame myself by losing my rag on like a live with all these people. And so it's like, of course we're not going to upload ourselves like, you know, shouting at our kids, like absolutely losing it. You know, so it's so funny how we kind of think that's kind of everyone's full picture, and it's not. And we try to look for outside cues of what is perfect or what is like wholesome, what's the best family life or whatever. But I mean, you see now it's all coming out with these big social media influencers who've done family content where it was actually really dark in their family. Awful things, abuse was going on, but you know, on the outside they looked perfect. And so I think it's just focusing on your own family, your own community, and don't try to compare to other people, because you're not comparing like for like situations anyway.
It's so true. And comparison is the thief of joy.
It is.
We want to have joyful homes.
We do, definitely.
And I think like the thing that I love about you guys and what you show of your family, and obviously I know, like you just said, it's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows. Like, it's not always as we see like the perfect picture, but it seems like your kids have got such like a brilliant understanding, and even in like a real sense of pride in the fact that their mum is a wheelchair user, and like they understand it, and it's like they almost can, they know what that means for them, how they can navigate the world with that. So how have you helped them develop that kind of understanding?
Do you know, it's really funny because I don't think we've consciously done anything.
Really?
I think what's been really interesting is they've never known me walking. From the moment they were born, they've known me to be paralysed. So for them, it's not at all weird. Like, so for them, they don't even think, oh, my mum's in a wheelchair. They just think, you're my mum. It's like, that's the primary label they have for me. All the other labels I have in life are secondary to being mum to them. And so for them, it's just not even like a thing, which I used to really worry about. Like, when I was pregnant, I had this like big thing of, what if like my kids are bullied because they've got a mum in a wheelchair? You know, and your imagination just really goes, well, there's really horrible kids in school or whatever. And actually none of that has happened. And I think because all the kids are used to seeing me as well around, it's not weird for them either. It's like, oh yeah, that's Elijah and Ariel's mum. You know, when they were really little, I'd get little kids come up and go, why is your mummy in a wheelbarrow? Or like, why is your mummy in a pushchair? So, because like, we're quite sure they'd not seen a wheelchair before. So you'd have funny things like that happen. But they're just not at all phased. And I think we worry far more about like our kids than we need to with this kind of thing. They're so naturally resilient, and because life for them is always changing. If you think about it, they're developing all the time, they're changing all the time. Change isn't scary to them, and also different isn't scary to them. Whereas I think as adults, we get set in our ways, and so we get really anxious about, oh, all of a sudden like life's changing and it's really affecting me. Is it going to really affect them? And often they handle stuff a lot better than adults. I remember when I was paralysed and I was 12 going on 13, and the nurses would say, it's amazing how better the children cope with suddenly becoming paralysed than adults.
Really?
Yeah, there was like a huge, and you could see it. And often they'd get the adults to come and talk to us, almost to give them a bit of, I don't know, a bit of encouragement, because I think as a child, you just accept the circumstances you're in. Whereas I know for adults, they were like, well, I've got my life set up already. I've got my house and my relationship, and this is going to affect all that. Whereas I think kids are just, they're moving with it. They're far more flexible than adults. So I worried for no reason, basically, because I thought it was going to be a lot bigger deal than it is.
Yeah.
And I think it's a bit like, you know, when you see celebrities and like their kids are so normal and you think, oh, what would it be like to like have, I don't know, Brad Pitt as my dad, or oh, it must be so weird. But actually, like, they couldn't care less. It's just dad to them.
It's just
or it's just,
normal.
and you see that and you just think, yeah, because everything else is secondary. When you're known, I think kind of it gets rid of any prejudice or any kind of worry around that area. Like, my kids are very comfortable around people with disabilities just because they've been around them. It's not scary. It's,
Yeah, I've not really thought about it like that before, like what you were just saying about how kids are actually so much more flexible and adaptable with the circumstances that come our way. Because I think as an adult we can try and create this like life for our children where they don't get affected by anything, there's never any like harm coming their way, and it's almost our own fear, isn't it? We don't want anything to change because we almost don't know how to cope with the change. Whereas kids, they do have so much more kind of resilience. And I love that when you were a teenager, for you, that is something that you got to experience firsthand, like a massive life change.
Yeah.
And so you've been able to adjust within your own mindset and you carry that through. I think that's really great. Yeah, because there's a lot on like that we kind of feel in this generation, isn't there, about we don't want to affect our kids negatively in any way. Yeah. We know so much more now about like psychology. Yeah. We're all basically psychologists.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Just get my PhD. But it's like, we can't, there's loads of things that we should do or we shouldn't do or whatever to ensure that our children have the most like mental stability and whatever. But it can then almost make us freeze a bit as parents because we're then like, well, what do I do? Like, what action do I take? We were speaking before, weren't we, off camera, about like the naughty step or the timeout or the not sending them anywhere, just giving them a hug. Like, you don't really know how to respond to your kids. And I think sometimes we become a bit overwhelmed with all the different advice out there. Yeah. So I don't know, I guess for you, how do you like prepare, even, I don't know, do you think ahead about, because you were saying about if your kids were like bullied in school for having a mum that's in a wheelchair, do you think about like how you would have that conversation with your kids, or is it just something that you're like, we'll just wait and see?
Yeah, I think now I'm in the mindset of we'll just wait and see, because as Jesus says, today has its own worries, forget about tomorrow's almost. And so I think for me, it's we'll reach that stage if it ever happens, but it's pointless worrying about stuff that might never happen. That's a lot of energy wasted. And I think as well, it's just about creating the whole like safe space for your kids, where I want my kids to feel like they can come to me about anything, and that we can talk about anything, and there's no shame or there's no judgment, but it's so if they do see something or something does happen to them, they feel like they can say, oh, this happened. And rather than them thinking, is this going to upset mum if I say someone said something bad about her being in a wheelchair, I want them to actually know that I'm a resilient person. It's not going to bother me at all. They can come to me, and actually we can explore what does that actually mean for them, for us as a family, and how do we kind of cope when people say negative things about us, because that can happen to anyone. I'm disabled, but we all have vulnerable areas in our life that if people touch on, it can trigger us, or we can have an emotional response. And I think that's probably the hardest thing about parenting, is regulating your own emotions and your own issues and triggers as well as your kids. And that's really tough at times. Yeah. But I always try to kind of show them like, no, it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to, when they say to me sometimes, Mummy, do you ever get annoyed that you can't walk? They'll ask me occasionally, and I go, yeah, sometimes. I said, if we go out somewhere and I can't, it's not easy for me to get to, another place, that's really frustrating. I wish I could walk then. I'm being open about that. Yeah. But guess what? I don't crumble about it. It's annoying, and almost trying to show them how we manage our emotions, about being honest that first of all I am annoyed, but secondly, but it's not going to ruin my day. And I think that's what we're there for, isn't it? We're there to kind of show them what it means to be an adult and what it means to be mature in our emotions. And we're not perfect, but I think rather than kind of protecting them from the big bad world, it's actually showing them, okay, you're in this world, how are you going to navigate it and become a whole human being, you know?
Yeah. And I guess that starts with you as a parent feeling confident in your own set of circumstances, or like having processed those emotions for yourself first. Because sometimes kids can be curious about something that you've not even thought about yet, and then it catches you off guard and you're like, I'm so sad. And they like, kids have such a way of like getting straight to the point, don't they?
Do, yeah.
So it takes probably a lot of like processing yourself, so that you can come with that kind of like the attitude that you want them to take away. So how do you feel like as a parent you've learned how to like grow in confidence? Because I guess when you become a parent, you have no idea what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
And then as the years go by, we do become more confident.
Yeah.
But are there things that you found that have like really helped you feel more confident as a parent, and just like parenting in your own way with your own kids?
Yeah, I think it's like you said, it is that kind of growing in confidence as the years go by and you get the experience behind you. And I think it's not, like we've talked about, not being afraid to kind of try different things. Like that's not going to mess your kids up if the routine for the day's changed, or, you know, family dynamics have changed. It's kind of like, no, let's explore this. Let's not try to shut things down. But confidence, it comes with experience. And I think when I became a parent, I'd been paralysed for a very long time. So I'd been on my own journey of really dealing with kind of like my own issues and kind of, getting to a better place mentally, so that then I could kind of show that for them. But I think life's unpredictable, isn't it? And curveballs happen all the time. You know, just when you think that you've gotten used to one situation, something else can happen. Yeah. And I think it's just like I've said, it's about being honest with your kids. It's about providing that space for them to ask questions. You know, I've had a few health issues recently, which was quite scary for my kids, where I kind of fainted and they were there at the time. And I remember lying on the floor and I heard Elijah be like, "Mummy," and thankfully John was there. And it was out of the blue and it's unexplained why it happened as well. So I haven't got closure that will it happen again. But actually, we talk about that now and they'll bring it up and they'll go, "Mummy, do you remember when you fell out of your chair and you're on the floor?" And it's like, "Did you nearly die?" And then we're talking about death all of a sudden. Will you die one day? And I think it's just, you've got to go with the flow, haven't you? And I think I part of me wanted to shelter them from kind of the kind of bad negative side of like medically that could happen to me. But also I want to prepare them that could happen again. When they're like, "Will it happen again?" Well, I hope not. But it might. Yeah. But guess what? If it does, we'll be okay because we know what to do. And I think it's like pointing out the positives in a situation sometimes, or even just kind of, you know, when people say, you know, when they see like disasters on the TV, and you've probably heard this, but people say, tell your children, look for the people that are helping though. Because that's almost like that bit of hope in that dark situation. And so I think it's kind of like focusing their eyes, obviously, on God, like ultimately, like he's always in control. Even when you feel like life is out of control, he's in control. Yeah. And I always say as well, like, you know, I hate the thing where people go, "God never gives you more than you can handle." Like, that's not true. He never gives you more than he can handle, you know. And I think whenever I get to the end of my tether, I'm a bit like, "Okay, God, I can't handle this now. I need to go to you." And I want my kids to do the same. So I think that's what I'm trying to instill in them is I won't always have all the answers, but when we don't, we go to God, you know, and sometimes we don't even get answers from God, but he's always there and his presence makes such a difference in any situation.
Oh, I love that. Preach it. That could be your preach on Friday.
Maybe that's what I'll do.
I think you should. I think you've got it. No, that is you're so right. You are so right. It's about, it's not about being kind of perfect or giving them the correct answer all the time. It's just about being honest, isn't it? Yeah. And I guess like age appropriate honesty as well is that I think that's something I find hard is like how much do I say at any given time, or like how do I answer the questions about I don't know, like my kids will just randomly sometimes, like my older child Ezra, he'll sometimes just ask about like death or like certain illnesses and stuff, and I'm like, where have you learned about this? I'm like, not ready for this conversation, but we're here. And you do just have to roll with it, don't you, as a parent?
And I think as well, it's going off their lead as well. I often give minimal information, and then if they then ask another question, I'll give more, because often they'll ask a question, I'll give them kind of minimal information, and then they'll just go off and play. And I'm like, oh, okay, dodge that. But then a year later, it might come up again, and actually then they have more questions because they're kind of more aware of the world.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, I think, following your child's lead, because every child is different. Even with my two, what I share with each one of them might be different based on age, but also based on temperament.
Yeah, like sensitivity to certain things.
Yeah, you know, so I think it's hard. It's not easy.
Oh dear. Well, Jade, I think you're doing a fantastic job.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm very grateful that we've got people like you who are just like so confidently like leading the way, being yourself, and showing us like how we can also do that with our own kids in all of our own unique circumstances. So yeah, we thank you so much for your wisdom.
Oh,
and
thanks for having me.
I hope that you have the best rest of your week at Spring Harvest.
Yeah, I'm sure I will. I can't wait.
Thank you so much for watching this episode with Jade Reynolds. I was particularly encouraged about what she said about our children being so much more adaptable and flexible than we think they are. And it's just so good to see how confident Jade is in her own journey, and it gives me confidence for my journey. So I hope it's given you a bit of hope for your day too. Thank you so much for watching or listening wherever you are. And don't forget to grab Jade's book, Able to Laugh, if you want to have a read and a laugh. And we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.